Welcome to Coleman Report Live. I'm Bob Coleman, and we're talking Main Street and the small business lenders who help it grow. John Riasti, American Banker, good to see you. I think you and I haven't seen each other for a while. Thank you very much. We appreciate you participating. We're going to let you go first today because I understand you have to hop off, so we will do that. Katie, good to see you. Lance, we got the team back in the saddle. It's nice to have everyone back. John, what are you working on?
I have been writing a story that will hopefully post online later today, involving PPP, sort of the waning days of lending operations, but really focused more on forgiveness, which is a topic I understand you covered in depth yesterday. So I'm a day late and a dollar short, but just really forgiveness, and more specifically the large dollar loan forgiveness, or the lack thereof, which is what is emerging as what might be the most significant remaining pain point in the program.
John, we're not going to ask you to comment on something that isn't published yet, but for most institutions that subscribe to American Banker, please take a look at that article. Hopefully it hits this afternoon, John.
Yes.
And I understand the preview, you're going to be talking about hold codes as well. So you're going to be doing a good wrap up of that.
Well, we were looking at hold codes too, and we were going to, initially sort of combine them, but that just got to be too big a thing. So that's going to follow in a to be determined date. But
I've commented that PPP is the Katie Roach Full Employment Act, and it sounds like John Riasti has the same thing in his contract as well. Real quick, de novo, why is you follow this a lot closer than I do. All I know is 2008, 2009, banks were closing right and left. We didn't have a new bank for years. I want to put you on the spot. I don't have the access to the information, but quite a few de novo banks this year popping up, correct?
There have been, and it's interesting you say that, Bob, because there's going to be one more, a trust company, Cypress Trust Wealth Management, in Florida, based in Palm Beach, but from my research with operations all, throughout the state, and that's a great state to have a wealth management operation in. They're going to just announce today that they're going to they plan to charter a community bank or a bank.
Do you know if any of these recent de novos? I know for a while, I think Live Oak Bank was the last one to get their charter before the recession hit back in 2008, 2007, and they were in escrow.
I apologize for interrupting, but there have been a number in the past 2 or 3 years, and I wish I could tell you exactly how many, but I think it's getting to be past a dozen. I know one opened up last year in in North Carolina, sort of in the Raleigh-Durham area, Triad, and
Sure.
First Women's Bank is going to open in Chicago very shortly, and there have been others. Now there's this bank in Florida. This bank that I wrote about, Grasshopper, is officially still a de novo because it opened in 2019, and I think it's still within the window that it is considered.
I got to ask the question. I got to ask you. You may not know the answer, but yes. Really, Grasshopper? What is the significance?
I do.
Okay.
Know.
Oh,
good. Mike Butler is the new CEO. He started this month, but the former CEO named it in honor of Grace Hopper, Admiral Grace Hopper.
I have no idea who that is, so I'll do my research. Very, very interesting. Well, thank you for that.
Jump from Grace Hopper to Grasshopper. So
I love it. I love stories like that. Let's go to poll question number one. Have you had a borrower or applicant indicted for PPP loan fraud? This came up yesterday, Lance, in your webinar.
Yes, it did, Bob. And I think that institutions across the country, don't be surprised if you have a few.
That's not bad. Less than 10%. We got 6%. And Lance, real quick, what do we do when we have that situation?
Well, if they're indicted for loan fraud, you're going to look at your file, make sure your records and forms are in line. Make sure all your documentation is in place. I'm sure the SBA is going to request all origination loan documents and supporting documents from you, the participant bank. But I think the most important thing, Bob, is just making sure that loan file is in good shape, so when SBA makes a request for information, you're able to provide it.
John, does that 6% number surprise you? Is that in line? It's 1 in 20.
I think it's in line. I have seen a number of stories about this. We've written some. So there's a lot of it going on, but remember, there are 11.2 million individual PPP loans.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I agree absolutely that it needs to be put into context.
Bob, one thing I think may occur, this new round of PPP had a giant push for sole proprietors, self-employed people, small, and I think the big fraudsters are out. I mean, they've seen their friends get caught, but I do think, Bob, we may see quite a bit of small dollar fraud.
Yeah,
which smaller applications.
Yeah, and that's, you want to avoid you want to avoid all fraud, but definitely the big dollars, the ones that buy the Lamborghinis and I guess you can't buy vacations anymore, but you can pay off credit card debt, that type of fun stuff.
I didn't know you could do that. Bob, I didn't know you could buy a big car with a PPP loan. I'm still driving a 6-year-old truck, so.
Isn't it considered business equipment? I don't know. Katie and John, what's going on the Hill? Katie, we keep on having hearings. John, are you following up anything important up there that we need to be aware of?
I guess, for me, with regard to PPP, and it's not necessarily surprising, but the main thing is what's not going on. It was back on the 3rd of the month when they announced that the money had, for all intents and purposes, if you're not a CDFI or an MDI, the money was gone, and there was I guess some talk of possibly providing some appropriation to tide the program over, if nothing else, give it money to operate to the end of the month. Give money so all banks could operate to the end of the month, but that didn't happen. And they seemed content to run out the string. And more surprisingly, even though the pot of money they talked about at that time, which was under $10 billion, was relatively small, it seemed to be lasting. And it looks like, the people I talked to in connection with this story that we'll post later today, they expect it to last through the 31st, into the 31st. So that, the program at obviously a much, much, much lower level will continue to originate loans up until the time when it legally sunsets, and then the focus will be exclusively on, or at least much more on, forgiveness.
We've been following the restaurant revitalization program, shuttered venue. I read an article that the hotels want to get in on this. They want their own fund as well. Do you see any appetite on Capitol Hill to increase any of these programs, any more dollar allocation? I mean, we're only at $788 billion dispersed so far in PPP lending.
Well, as PPP, you have to, I guess, look, and Katie can talk about this too. Restaurant revitalization, that's been heavily utilized. People were waiting for that. Perhaps not so much on shuttered venue. And the hotels, they're pushing Congress now. But we'll see. But they have an interesting point. The restaurants got a program. The shuttered venues got a program.
Why not me?
Exactly. Yeah. Bottom line, why not me?
Hey, John, why don't we kick you off and let you prepare for your next call? I know that's important. I want to thank you very much for joining us. I always love your insights. Everyone, let's read that article. And John, if it's okay with you, we'll have you on next week, and we'll talk a little bit more about hold codes.
Yes. We'll see.
Take care.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, John.
Bye-bye.
So Katie, where are we on numbers? Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so in total, PPP had about $813.5 billion in total lending capacity. We are now down to about $5 million left as of about 2 days ago exclusively for CDFIs and other minority lending groups. And from what we've been hearing, it sounds like a lot of those CDFIs have stopped doing the lending for PPP. So it is a little bit hard right now to find someone who will do it. However, you can still find them and they are still accepting loans. So you just have to kind of search around a little bit, but that is still available. But otherwise, there's rumors that this will last through the end of the month. I don't know if I necessarily believe it, but it is going a little slower than one might have expected. So it might last till the end of the month.
Very good. Katie, you've been following the story in the Office of Advocacy. Well, I'd say, let's ask the poll question first, and we'll go to that. The poll question is, do you feel more productive at home or in the office, or both? Lance, how are you more productive, Lance?
Very productive at home, Bob. Not a lot of distractions, can dig in and accomplish quite a bit working from home.
Katie, you've been with us we're coming about 2 years. You've always been home, I assume. Do you miss going into an office, or are you comfortable? Are you productive where you are?
You know, I only worked in an office when I was a paralegal for about 1.5 years. And I honestly can't say I miss the drive. I really dislike that part of it. So being at home, being able to roll out of bed and start work right away is definitely a benefit for me. And I find myself more productive at home. But there are certainly people who are excited to get back to the office. I'm reading more and more articles right now about people wanting to get back or to do some kind of hybrid. I know my dad works in the finance industry, and they're talking about doing a bit of a hybrid. Some people are going to be working entirely from home, but coming in maybe for only important conferences and things like that. In contrast, my husband's doing work from home right now, clear up until September, and then they're talking about going fully back to the office. So it really depends on the industry as well. But we are certainly seeing plenty of people who like at home, plenty that like in the office, and banks and lenders are adjusting to that, and we're hearing.
So's management, absolutely.
Absolutely, you're hearing people who are allowed to work from the office or from home now, and Lance is working from home completely right now, and that's great. That works for him, and I'm at home too, and it's great.
Let's go to the last poll question here. Has your lending institution formulated the new normal? In other words, have you been notified on how it's going to look? Wow, 1/3 say no, Lance. That's surprising.
Well, it's probably upper bank management has a lot of mixed feelings about this, because the pandemic did show financial institutions that they can operate perfectly fine without having all their staff at the locations. But on the other hand, Bob, they've got all these buildings and all these offices that don't have people in them. So it's probably, I think most institutions have found that banking professionals can do just fine working from home. But I do think that they're going to want to populate the offices that they have out there.
I haven't read. I know, Lance, I know you in a former life, you were a regulator for a while. I haven't read anything, Katie, I don't know if you have, about what the regulator's attitude is toward this, with bankers working out of the home. First of all, the regulators, where are they working? Out of the home. So I assume that's...
I don't know that there's a lot of pushback from regulators on bankers working from home. And I just know from the banks that I visit, quite often you walk into a location and the only people there are teller staff, retail staff.
Yeah, frontline staff. Yeah, absolutely.
Which the question becomes, Bob, what kind of bank building do they build in the future? I think you're going to see smaller bank buildings with fewer offices.
I think we're going to be talking a lot about commercial real estate loans and developers in the next couple of years. Katie, following up on that conversation, SBA is very interested in supply lines. They're very interested in workers. What is the SBA Office of Advocacy saying? And I'm sort of interested in where are the graduates getting jobs these days?
Yeah, so this report, I believe, hit earlier this month and just hit my inbox today, but it's specifically on science and high-tech workers, which represent about 4% of small business workers, which is important to know because a lot of lenders aren't nearly as tech savvy. I know I'm not tech savvy enough to know exactly how all that stuff works. So it is important to find someone who does and things like that. And it's important to keep up to date on what the small business industry is comprised of, who's working where and things like that. This study is specifically looking at graduates, mostly undergraduates, and saying that you're seeing a much larger portion of undergraduates going into the private sector, specifically into small businesses, and you're seeing them more likely to go into startups right after college, which is important too for small businesses. You're also seeing them go specifically into professional, scientific, and technical services, which was the category they selected as the most common for undergraduates going to small businesses, 20%. For larger firms, you saw more of these people going into healthcare and social assistance. So it is just important to know what these groups make up and to keep up to date on these things.
The reason why we're covering this story, Lance, is worker shortage is a huge issue. It's one thing to hire for a franchise fast food place, but if you're selling stuff to NASA, you need to have specialized employees. And, yeah, I mean, and I think that's important for the lenders to know where the workforce is coming from.
There's no doubt about it, Bob. Small businesses are different than they were when I first started this process, and the need for highly skilled employees, new employees for small businesses just grows year after year.
I want to finish up with the 504 refinance. It was passed on December 27th, 2020. We got a notice on February 26th. When I was talking to John, he was saying that a lot of lenders aren't too concerned about that because they just don't have the infrastructure to handle everything. But Lance, you and I try not to be too critical of SBA. We know they're doing yeoman's work, but this seems to be dragging on too long. Either say we're not going to do it, or this is how it's going to look. That's my opinion.
Yeah, there are quite a number of things that we need to see from SBA, and I'm with you, Bob. I can't criticize when you look at the dollars that have been pumped into the small business community. They've done years and years and years worth of work in a short period of time. But not only do we need the 504 refinance rules, as we're walking through and working through that initial PPP round forgiveness, we need guidance on how to get the guarantee paid on a PPP loan that defaults.
Yeah, know that. Yeah. Katie, how much more time do we have on this 504 refinance? When does it sunset?
Yeah, that's going to sunset December 26th. So we do have a little bit of time still.
Yeah, we're halfway through the process.
And the SBA has been known to extend those. For example, when the restaurant revitalization program didn't get started till later, that got extended a little and things like that. So it is possible that it'll get extended if this doesn't happen soon enough.
Well, very good. Hey, Lance and Katie, I enjoyed it. John, if you're still there, I enjoyed it. And thank you all for joining us today for Coleman Report Live and for supporting America's Main Street, also our restaurant webinar. one entrepreneur at a time. Thank you.